Bosses of Reddit, what is the stupidest thing you have had to fire someone for? This guy always tried to hide at work to avoid working. One day I was looking for him and I stepped into the bathroom. I notice a shoe print on the back of the toilet, and I look up and one of the ceiling tiles is pushed a little to the side. I climb up there, and this mother sucker is hiding in the ceiling. Had an employee get caught rolling 20 blunts in the produce cooler. He did offer to share. Another incident, all of lobsters kept dying off several times. Several thousands of dollars worth of lobsters even after cleaning the tank a couple of times in case there were some lobster hating germs in there. Turns out, one of the overnight floor cleaners was staging gladiatorial lobster battles. Unfortunately, he forgot to wash his hands that were covered in floor cleaning chemicals. Did not bode well for Spartacus and his armored brethren. One of my maintenance guys tried to stab a guy over a bag of dirt. Company dirt. Worked at a nightclub. What if the workers called in sick, but he was actually going to some party instead? Could you guess where they went after the party? Yes, to our nightclub. Had a guy do that at our theater. He got high and called in. This wasn't terribly uncommon. Then he decided to sneak into a movie right past the on-duty manager. It worked as well as you can imagine. Manager at a delivery joint here. We had to let someone go because they decided to deliver pizzas in a stolen car. Well, it's not like you'd want to put those miles on your personal vehicle. We worked at a place that bought in used cell phones. She bought a cell phone from a guy and his Facebook was still open. She posted as the guy on his Facebook something like, "I'm a big freaking idiot." Guy came back to complain. She was fired. Poor girl, she was probably just trying to post on her own Facebook. But she couldn't because she's a big freaking idiot. One of the lifeguards was really hungover, so he took a crap in the pool so we didn't have to open up for the day. Now that's a stroke of genius. I was managing a restaurant and did morning cash out. I checked all slips against the information in the computer. I noticed her new hire had really good tip averages the day before when I had been paying her out. The next day I was going through her slips and noticed a discrepancy. Mainly that she had added a 1 in front of each tip and changed the total. How could I tell, you ask? She used different color ink. She was fired and we refunded the money. Seriously, at least use the same color ink. When I arrived to the United States last year, I would always avoid paying in restaurants with cards because I was afraid people would do this. It just seems so simple, and I come from a place where some people are not to be trusted. I find it so weird that you guys trust each other so much to just leave your tab open like that. I had to fire this kid from a gas station I worked at after he asked me if I ever poked holes in the condoms with a push pin, as he proceeded to punch holes in condoms. I have no idea how long he was doing it for. He worked there for over a year. Had to fire a girl for sleeping with a client at a homeless shelter. I worked in a fast food kiosk in an amusement park. We had a machine that cooked our burgers and toasted our buns. One of those ones where the food goes through on a conveyor belt. One day, it was raining. While walking to the kiosk, a girl got wet. So, logically, she took her clothes off and put them through the machine so the heat could dry them. Her shirt caught on fire and set the kitchen sprinklers off. Her shoe forced the 2 toasting plates in the bun section far apart, creating a large repair bill. I worked with a guy who was fired for regularly watching pee at his desk. They talked to him several times and he just never stopped. An IT department I once worked for monitored internet traffic and found this is quite common among senior management. We tried to curb it by sending fake canned emails threatening exposure, but there were still several higher level employees that just didn't give a dang. This one guy would turn up to work and visit P sites until he went home. Crazy times. A couple of co-workers decided to start dealing C at the hospital we worked at and thought using the internal email system was a good way to keep in touch with customers. Oh, I am so excited to share. I had an 18-year-old employee go to Vegas for a long weekend. He had been late a few times before and had been warned that continued tardiness would result in disciplinary action. So this Einstein is headed back from Vegas with his buddy after they both blew all their money and they realize that they don't have enough gas to make it back. He really doesn't want to be late. Already you are probably thinking of the multitude of options available to these two fine upstanding citizens. They could call saying they were in a jam. They could beg for $20 and see if anyone took pity on them. Or they could steal some gas. They chose none of these options. The two of them decided the best option was to take a handgun from their trunk, go into a gas station, hold it up, and demand exactly $20. They then drove 1 mile down the road to the next gas station where they filled up, paid, and were surrounded by the police as they were attempting to pull back onto the road. When I first heard what happened, I was sure the story must be exaggerated or wrong. I knew the kid wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I never dreamed anyone could do something so amazingly idiotic. It still boggles my mind. I love how they've decided to commit armed robbery and they still only take $20. Receptionist who forgot to wear pants. I was at a satellite office and had 4 employees call me separately to let me know there were some previous issues, plus they were pretty sure she was on something. One of my technicians used our remote software to start typing to a girl whose machine he took control of. He opened Notepad, wrote what up s and then went to Pornhub. Supervisor gets an email about sexual harassment the same day and he's gone the next morning. Not a boss, but HR. Had a guy on a temporary work comp transitional assignment at a retail store. His regular job had very good pay, a lot of benefits, etc. The moron stole a used scuba suit from his temporary job site, on camera. Bonus, we're well over 1,000 miles from any ocean. I had an employee who was getting drunk on the job. I found him in a hallway, on the floor, wasted. He told me that he got bad headaches and the only cure was champagne on crushed ice. A PC technician was being pestered with questions from a customer about sales stuff. He lost it and while looking the customer square in the face, the employee had his eyes closed however, said, "Get away from me or I'll eat your face." It took half the day to get over the laughter and WTF of the situation before we could even begin on paperwork. Sorry Pat, you can't go yet. I am not done laughing. I once worked in a retail store where we all had our own access codes that allowed us to do stuff, and if our code didn't allow us to do it, we weren't supposed to be doing it. On his first day during training he managed to catch the general manager's code as he was typing it in and used it for about a week. Pretty much gave away thousands of dollars of equipment in the manager's name. It was particularly stupid because he did it because he still had his trainee position which required somebody to look over most of what he did if he wanted to give discounts, etc. If he had waited another couple of days he would have been moved up to full staff member and could have given out most of those discounts anyway without anybody noticing or caring. He just couldn't wait to give his friends all the free swag. Guitar Center. I told him to stop getting high before work. I even told him he was a good worker when not high, and that I didn't care what he did off the clock. I literally told him that people could smell weed on him, and that he acted like an idiot while high. He apologized, agreed with me, even offered up the fact that it was, in fact, affecting his work. Next day, shows up stoned to the bone. "Sorry, guy, you're fired." He forgot he wasn't supposed to get high because he was high. I got a great one. My friend and I were both district managers for a vendor company that worked in Home Depots building displays and merchandising. One day one of the workers was on the store phone talking with one of the owners of the company. Owner hears in the background an in-store page for a manager he knows had been fired a month before. Turns out this guy had made an hour-long recording of the inside sounds of a Home Depot and would play it on his stereo anytime someone would call him. Fooled everyone for months. My buddy and me drove to his house and parked outside and called him. My friend asked him where he was, and he goes, "I'm at the store." We tell him, "You might want to look out your window." We see his curtain part a little bit and close fast. We told him, "Don't bother coming out, you're fired." Got to give him credit for the balls and ingenuity though. I was the manager of a Papa John's and a lady called and complained about a driver going too fast near her kids. A driver comes back, and I say, "Pat, a lady called. Try and slow it down a bit." He goes postal in front of a packed audience of pickup customers. "Frick you, man. Whose side you on?" "Not mad, Pat. Just be careful." "Nah. Frick you schlying." "Pat dude. Not mad. Just be careful." "Ah, no. Frick that. You and I need to go outside." "Calm down, dude. Not mad at ya. Don't worry. Frick you. FLPPPBBT babble mibble babble. You're done, man." Go home. Most awkward pizza firing aside from when this dude tried to kill me when I worked on the coast. Pat is a nurse now. This actually just happened. Our supplier came out onto my construction site and cooked everyone a free Barbie. This one bloke had a meltdown and almost had a fight with the chef. Their conversation started off like this. Guy, where's the butter? Chef, ain't got no butter mate. Guy, what kind of Barbie is this without any butter? Chef, a free one. If you don't like it, don't have it. Then the guy blew up yelling at the chef for making smart-ass comments and swearing his head off. While the chef thought nothing of it and remained really calm and telling the guy to take it easy. Our site does not tolerate this kind of behavior. Needless to say, we kicked the guy off site ASAP. Lost a job over a free Barbie and butter, lol. This is the most Australian thing I have ever read. In high school, a guy I knew stole a giant Ronald McDonald made of Legos from the McDonald's he worked at. It was one of those guess the number of pieces contests. He got away with it, but later on he was busted for stealing boxes of hash brown wrappers with Monopoly game pieces on them. Cops show up at his place to arrest him over the hash browns. Lo and behold, there sits Ronald in the middle of his room. Employee wrote butthole on the bottom of a customer's oil filter. Customer decided to change his oil one day. Something. Fired. A concessions attendant gave a pot brownie to my 75-year-old door person at my movie theater. She didn't press charges, but he had to go. No paperwork on it either. I had him resign. That's really messed up. I don't care about people doing drugs or anything really as long as it isn't hurting anyone else, but drugging someone else is a dong move. Even with pot. Lots of people get really anxious and paranoid, and to not know why would be just awful. Poor grammar. Forgot cheese on cheese pizza. Twice. High as an astronaut fart. I guarantee it. I once tried to make pizza in college. After the timer buzzed off, I found that I had just cooked an empty rack for 20 some minutes. Years ago, we had a guy get caught selling pee off a website hosted from his government computer. This was back in the days when the network security was extremely lax. The only reason this guy got caught was because he took his computer into IT and asked them to clean it up because it was running slow. We've also had guys get caught for stealing controlled items and selling them on the local Craigslist without even bothering to remove any of the identifying marks. Putting a customer's info in the system as first name, don't care, last name, smells like crap. Personal hygiene. You'd think people would have the common courtesy to shower before working with others. That person smelled like pure BO with crap sprinkled on top. I worked with a guy who got fired for buying pee on eBay all day at work. I thought this was pretty out there until I saw the other pee at work stories here. But still, I think this takes the cake because he was internet savvy and still paying for second-hand pee DVDs. That's varsity level work pee stupid. Backstory. Employee Ed works a union job, works 40 hours per week, makes about $60K per year, full benefits, full pension, tons of paid vacation, and is in his early to mid 30s. Ed has absolutely no education, did not even finish high school, is socially awkward, pretty much sucks at his job, is physically weak, often injured, never enough for a doctor to find a problem, just enough to get alternate duty. Basically, the picture I'm painting is that Ed would be homeless if it wasn't for this job for life he somehow lucked into. He is completely unemployable otherwise. Motherfucking Ed takes funeral leave for a Thursday and a Friday for his mother's funeral. Some other manager who seems to remember his mom dying a few years ago does some snooping and eventually asks for some proof. Ed turns in a faked obituary, gets found out, and fired. I still think about that guy sometimes. He turned down the best gig of his life for a stupid 4-day weekend, when he had like 20 paid days off available for use anyway. This really annoys me. I'm a union man and always have been, but I believe if you want a fair deal you should work hard and give a fair deal to the employer. Guys like this make us all look bad. One of the security guys at my company was caught masturbating to pee during the day at the main reception desk by a female PA. When we had his exit interview, we asked him why he did it, and he just said he felt really comfortable at work and got carried away while browsing Reddit. He'd been with the company for years. The best part was a colleague of mine who came back from vacation a week later and asked what happened to Ron. Someone said he was fired and immediately the guy said, oh what? Did he get caught jerking off? But he didn't even know. He just got the vibe that Ron would be the type to jerk it at work. Worked at a fairly large used bookstore in NYC. We often listed and sold rare books online, and sometimes had really unusual items that were truly one of a kind, signed and numbered, or personally inscribed from one famous person to another, or whatever. One day, we get a phone call from one of the managers from the huge bookstore up the street, which also happens to be our biggest competitor. He explained that he has a large stack of merchandise that he is sure was stolen from our store. Apparently, earlier that day, a fellow had come to his store with some books and art prints he was hoping to sell. The manager looked a few of them up and quickly deduced that they were stolen. Two of the items in particular were really exceptionally rare and obviously identifiable as belonging to us. This would have all been bad enough, but the manager had one last piece of information to share. Thing is, he says, I'm pretty sure that the guy who brought them in works for you. I've seen him over there a bunch of times. He usually works Sundays and Mondays. Tall guy, blonde hair, wears cowboy shirts, blah blah blah, and proceeds to absolutely and without a shadow of a doubt identify our sales associate Dan. Dan had apparently gone into our rare book room, stolen the books, which were already listed for sale on the internet, walked an entire 4 blocks to one of the most famous bookstores in the city, and tried to sell his stolen loot to one of the booksellers he saw at least twice a week in our store. Unbelievable. If we hadn't fired him for theft, we would have had to fire him for the epic stupidity. We're prosecuting you for theft, Dan, but we're firing you because you're a moron. I'm surprised that these videos aren't more popular. They're pretty darn good. #feature me. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.